Kevin, I'm gonna, are you ready?
Just 1 second. I think the last person's entering. We'll give that just 1 second.
Sure thing.
Okay, Blue, we are ready to start.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's training, WCAG Explained. Please note, the information found in this presentation is based upon the experience and the understanding of the WCAG by WeCo and should not be construed as legal advice. Regarding the development and implementation of the digital accessibility practices, it is advisable to seek the advice of qualified legal counsel. The information in this presentation is the property of the Wehrman Collaborative LLC. Please ask us before distributing this information by contacting us at accessinfo@weco.com. Thank you. This slide shows the title of the presentation and includes WeCo's logo. The WeCo's logo is repeated on most of the slides in this presentation. Next slide. Your instructors today are me, Suan Rodriguez. I'm the Director of Accessibility Services. There may be occasional pauses during my presentation as I have a speech impediment and also use a screen reader. Also assisting with today's training is Tyler Malone, accessibility specialist. This slide includes a photo of me and Tyler. Next slide.
WeCo offers manual accessibility audit services that can help your team understand which areas of your project meet accessibility requirements. We can also provide customized recommendations on how to fix any issues found. WeCo also offers usability testing services, which provide keen insights into how our testers living with disabilities view your project. Testers complete tasks to verify that your website or software truly works for users living with disabilities. WeCo testers live with one or more disabilities, which fall into 4 major disability groups: cognitive, mobility, hearing, and sight. Finally, WeCo offers various consulting packages and training options on topics related to accessibility and usability. On this slide is a photo of 2 hands typing on a laptop. Next slide. Here's a quick summary of what we'll be talking about today. First, we're going to talk about what web content accessibility guidelines are and what they include. Next, we're going to go over the 4 principles by which the WCAG are organized. Then we're going to discuss the guidelines and some of the success criteria which fall under each principle. And finally, we'll provide some accessibility resources you can check out for more information. We'll be answering questions at the end of this webinar. This slide includes a photo of a notebook with a pair of eyeglasses, with a pencil and a coffee mug in the background. Next slide. We're going to start things off with a quick overview regarding the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Later, we're going to get into more specifics. Next slide. Let's first define the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, also called WCAG. The WCAG are guidelines which specify criteria used to determine whether content is accessible to users living with disabilities. Who's creating the guidelines? The guidelines are created by the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C, a private organization made up of a cross-section of stakeholders from government, industry, and consumer groups that create standards. Who is adopting them? The WCAG has been accepted and adopted by organizations all over the world. It also impacts many laws. For example, the US Department of Transportation has adopted WCAG 2.0 level AA into their airline website and booking requirements engine. WCAG 2.0 level AA has also been applied to the refresh of Section 508, which was released in January of 2018. This slide includes an image of a question mark drawn on a chalkboard. Next slide. WCAG are organized under 4 principles: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. For each guideline, there's testable success criteria. Each criterion is given one of 3 levels of performance: single A, double A, or triple A. An image of a pink highlighter checking items off a checklist is shown on this slide. Next slide. Now let's go over the 4 principles the WCAG guidelines and success criteria are focused around. Next slide. Perceivable. Information and user interface components must be perceivable to users. This means that users must be able to perceive the information being presented. It cannot be invisible to all of their senses. Operable. User interface components and navigation menus must be operable. This means that users must be able to operate the interface. The interface cannot require interactions that the user cannot perform. Understandable. Information and the operation of the user interface must be understandable. This means that users must be able to comprehend how to use the interface and the purpose of the interface. The content or operation cannot be beyond their understanding. Robust. Content must be robust enough that it can be interpreted reliably by a wide variety of user agents, including assistive technologies. This means that users must be able to access the content as technology advances. As technologies and user agents evolve, the content should remain accessible. Next slide.
Now let's go over the guidelines and some of the success criteria included for each of the principles. Note, each guideline contains a number of success criteria, which are basically testable statements. Next slide. The guidelines and success criteria that fall under the perceivable principle include Guideline 1.1, text alternatives. This is referring to providing text alternatives for any on-text content so that it can be changed into other forms people need, like large print, braille, speech, symbols, or simpler language. A success criterion for this guideline is provide an alternative text description for images describing the visual aspects of them. Guideline 1.2, time-based media or audio and video. This guideline refers to providing alternatives for time-based media. Some success criterion for this guideline are for audio content that has no video, like a podcast, provide a transcript. Provide captions for all pre-recorded videos. Also for videos that are pre-recorded, provide an alternative text description and or an audio description of what is visually taking place on the screen. Guideline 1.3, adaptable. This is referring to creating content that can be presented in different ways, like in a simpler layout without losing any information or structure. Some success criterion for this guideline include information and relationships that are conveyed visually, like distinct sections within a page, or a label next to a checkbox, are also identified in the HTML code. Elements appear in a logical reading order in the HTML code so that they can be presented in a meaningful order to screen reader users. Color, size, shape, sound, and or the location of elements on the screen are not used as the only way to convey tips and or instructions. That the only way that are not used as the only way that tips and or instructions are conveyed. Guideline 1.4, distinguishable. This guideline refers to making it easier for users to see and hear content, and including separating foreground from background. Some success for this guideline include color is not the only way of conveying information. Text has enough contrast against the background color. Visual information that it identifies important graphics, interactive controls, and their state has enough contrast against adjacent colors. No images of text are used. Next slide. The guidelines and success criteria that fall under the operable principle include Guideline 2.1, keyboard accessible. This refers to making all functionality available through a keyboard. Some success criteria that regarding this guideline include users are able to access and interact with all content and interactive elements. Users do not get trapped within any element. This refers to users being able to use the tab and shift tab keys to navigate into and away from a text box, for example. Guideline 2.2, enough time. This is referring to providing users enough time to read and use content. Some success criteria for this guideline include for time limits like a session timeout, provide a way for users to extend the session time. Do not show anything that automatically blinks, scrolls, or animates, or updates frequently for more than 5 seconds. Guideline 2.3, seizures. This guideline refers to not designing content in a way that is known to cause seizures. A success criterion for this guideline is do not include any content that flashes more than 3 times per 1 second. Guideline 2.4, navigable. This refers to providing ways to help users navigate, find content, and determine where they are. Some success criteria for this guideline include provide a way to go directly to the page's main content for keyboard and screen reader users. Provide a unique, clear, and helpful page title that indicates the overall purpose of the page. Ensure that the purpose of links is clear from the link text alone or together with the links associated content. Guideline 2.5, input modalities. This refers to making it easier for users to operate functionality through various inputs beyond a keyboard. Some success criteria for this guideline include ensure that complex gestures or using more than one finger to do things is not required. Ensure that touch targets are big enough and have enough space in between them. Next slide. The guidelines and success criteria that fall under the understandable principle include Guideline 3.1, readable. This guideline refers to making content readable and understandable. Some success criterion for this guideline include identify the language that the page's content is written in. For example, Spanish. If the page has content that is in more than one language, for example, if a page in English has a button labeled in Spanish. Identify the language for the button in the HTML code. Guideline 3.2, predictable. This refers to making web pages appear and operate in predictable ways. Some success criteria for this guideline include just navigating to an interactive control with the keyboard should not trigger any action and should not move the keyboard focus somewhere else on the page. Just changing the state of a form input, like a radio button, must not cause anything surprising to happen, such as submitting the form, moving the keyboard focus, or significantly changing the content on the page. Ensure that navigation controls that appear on multiple pages, such as links in the header, are consistent across all pages. If a user interface component exists on multiple pages, ensure that the way it looks and the way that it is named is consistent across all pages. Guideline 3.3, input assistance. This refers to helping users avoid and correct mistakes. Some success criteria for this guideline are, when someone makes an error when filling out a form, describe the error in text and clearly identify where the error is located. Provide the tables to make it clear how users should fill out a form, and optionally provide extra hints to help them avoid errors. Well, when somebody makes an error while completing a form, give them some suggestions on how to correct it. If users are making a legal commitment, a financial transaction, or updating personal data, ensure that there is a way for them to review and check the information that they've entered before they submitting it. Next slide. The guidelines and success criteria that fall under the robust principle include guideline 4.1, compatible. This refers to maximizing compatibility with current and future agents, including assistive technologies. Some success criteria that fall under that regarding for this guideline are: the HTML code does not contain any markup errors that cause conflicts with assistive technology. For example, incorrect investing of elements or having multiple same IDs. The code should enable assistive technologies to understand the name, role, and state of active elements. Status messages should be correctly identified in the code so that assistive technologies can convey them to users. Next slide.
Next, we're be going over the primary requirements for conformance to WCAG. Next slide. For level single A conformance, the minimum level of conformance, the web page must satisfy all level A criteria, or a conforming alternative must be provided. For level AA conformance, the web page must satisfy all level A and AA conformance, or a conforming alternative must be provided. For level AAA conformance, a web page must satisfy all level A, AA, and AAA criteria, or a conforming alternative must be required or provided. Note that it is not usually recommended to require conformance to level AAA because it is impossible to make some forms of content comply. It is advised that instead, if you are trying to, oh, I'm sorry, that's not part of it. Next slide. Conformance and conformance level is for entire web pages only. It cannot be achieved if part of a web page is excluded. Conformance is also not possible at a particular level if any page in a process does not conform with that level or better. This means that when a web page is part of a series of web pages to complete a process, i.e. a sequence of steps that need to be completed in order to accomplish an activity, all web pages in the process must conform at the specified level. For example, if an online store has a series of pages to shop for, select, and purchase items, all pages in the series from start to finish, from searching for items to checkout, must be conformant in order for any part of the process to be considered conformant. Note that authors of web pages that cannot conform due to content outside the author's control can consider a partial conformance statement rather than a full compliance statement. For a full list of conformance requirements, you can visit the following URL: www.w3.org/tr/WCAG21/$CC1. Next slide. As we wrap things up, we're going to give you some accessibility resources that you can use. Next slide. If you'd like to learn more from WeCo, please visit us at our website, theweco.com. Our website includes a free accessibility library, an events page, which includes information on upcoming webinars, workshops, meetups, and other events, blog posts on a variety of accessibility topics, and more. You can also reach out directly to the WeCo accessibility team through email, accessinfo@theweco.com, or by giving us a call at 855-849-5050, extension 1. Thank you for taking our training today.
And with that said, we are at time, but there is also there is time for questions. So if anybody has any questions, we are here to answer them.
Thank you, Sue Ann and Tyler. And just a reminder that if you wish to speak questions, you may unmute yourself and voice your questions. Otherwise, you may type them into the chat box and I will relay them to our presenters.
Well, if there are no questions, we again thank you for attending the WCAG Explained webinar, and hope to have you join us again for one of our upcoming public webinars.
Nice job, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.